all these people right here are Antifa, and they're against what's going on here at this ICE detention facility. Who knows what's going to happen out here in Portland right now?
Because they want to say, look at this hellscape in Portland, when all of the photos that I've seen are just like people in T-Rex costumes hanging out and going to the farmer's market.
You're going to be... Don't do that! Where'd it go?
They go into Portland and nothing happens, but nothing is happening. It's people in T-Rex Halloween costumes who are getting maced for simply exercising their First Amendment right.
Yeah, you don't have a right to impede law enforcement action.
Yeah, it's not law enforcement.
Well, no, I mean... It is. They're federal agents.
Like, regardless of whether or not, like, assuming that we did...
Robert Hoops, that's his name.
But we don't impede them, right? We just stand there.
I know that Jack really wants to consider obstruction a First Amendment right, but impeding law enforcement is not protected by the First Amendment. It is an action, even if you're just sitting there. This is Matt Wills with Defining Ethos. So I got this awesome clip with YouTuber Jack Cocciarella who gets caught in a blatant lie. Now pay attention to his strategy, because multiple times, just to avoid the lie, he rants long enough to where the audience would simply forget. And Knowles masterfully won't let him live it down.
Jack, you know, it seemed to me the congressman actually, maybe inadvertently, gave the explanation for why Trump feels justified in using the Insurrection Act. Because if you agree that the law enforcement in these very crime-ridden cities is failing and under-resourced, then why shouldn't a government use the Insurrection Act to put troops on the ground and try and restore proper order?
Well, because I don't think the intention is to restore proper order. Donald Trump and his entire administration has made it clear that they'd be happy to see unrest come out of sending in the National Guard. That's what they...
So what Jack just did there is called a motive fallacy, which is if someone does an action, whether positive or negative, you ascribe a negative intent to the action, and that way the audience will view the action as negative. So instead of actually discussing the claim or the topic, he's choosing a lazy trick to make the audience feel a certain way.
Wanted out of their attack on LA. That's what they wanted to happen in DC. Donald Trump sees this as an opportunity.
Do you have any evidence for that?
To intimidate people. It's come out directly of the administration that they think it is a win if they go into Portland and nothing happens, but nothing is happening. It's people in T-Rex Halloween costumes who are getting maced for simply exercising their First Amendment right, which, Michael, I thought you cared about. It doesn't really seem like that's the case. But they've also said that if there is
Where are you getting that from? Hold on, before you make you made an argument.
I think if you would allow me to finish my point,
the Trump administration wants disorder and has admitted this. What's your evidence?
You don't like to hear people speak out, and now I'm delivering a point that you don't seem to like, and you want to silence me. That's what this administration does. It's okay.
I'm just asking you that
today.
Now, Jack, to be clear, you made a statement that the Trump administration actively wanted disorder, and Michael, I think, understandably, because I would ask the same thing. Where is the evidence?
It has been reported.
Where is the evidence that they wanted disorder?
It has been reported that this administration sees it as a win if unrest comes out of the deployment. It came out of Axios, that they see it as a win if there is...
But he said it came straight out of the administration. Now he's saying it came out of Axios.
Unrest because of these deployments, because they want to say, look at this hellscape in Portland, when all of the photos that I've seen are just like people in T-Rex costumes hanging out and going to the farmer's market. And if you really want to deploy the...
Okay, so the T-Rex outfit thing. So during these protests and riots where they're obstructing ICE and all that, there was someone who showed up in an inflatable T-Rex costume, and it was funny and it went viral, whatever. Then further protests and riots, more people showed up in these inflatable T-Rex outfits. Now, he's saying they're just T-Rexes going to farmers markets, but if you guys have followed Nick Shirley, Nick Sortor, or Cam Higbee, you all know what was going on. So this is just like pointing at a distraction to obfuscate from what was actually happening on the ground.
If you thought that law enforcement was the answer to this problem, Donald Trump wouldn't be cutting the budget of police across the country to the tune of billions of dollars. Like, that wouldn't be happening. So you don't really have a
increase the law enforcement budget.
First of all, that's not true, which is what just took place in his budget.
He did. That was the big beautiful bill. That was one of the key provisions of the big beautiful bill.
That is absolutely untrue. So you don't even have this like cogent theory of policing or law enforcement that you want to see
Your
carried
argument
out.
is that the
It's
big
all
beautiful
about
bill
intimidation.
did not increase law enforcement funding at the federal level.
Donald Trump has cut again and again.
Congressman,
and again.
could you please clarify for our confused liberal friend here?
Well, there was an increase, but look.
Okay, so then again, I come back to Jack. So Jack.
Okay, so Jack was just caught in a lie, and this is a pretty easily verifiable lie. So where do you go from here?
Jack, you've just heard there from a Democratic congressman that the big beautiful bill actually increased federal spending on law enforcement, the opposite of what you just said.
There's nothing that Donald Trump, the supposed back the blue guy, has done to support police in this country. He doesn't actually care. It's a gimmick. It's a game. Michael, I know you're familiar with that. It's fine. But Donald Trump doesn't care. If he did, he wouldn't have pardoned 1,500 cop-beating insurrectionists to go out and reoffend and refund. If you want to talk about crime in this country and who's being let loose on the streets, I think Donald Trump is allowing that to happen more than any other single person in this country. So I don't really know how you could make the case that this administration cares about policing, cares about crime, cares about law enforcement, when every action that they have publicly taken and celebrated is to the opposite of that argument, Michael.
Yeah, I guess there are very few things that Democrat congressmen and I agree on, but what Congress just did in President Trump's big, beautiful bill would happen to be one of them, and that's increased federal law enforcement funding. So, I don't know where your confusion comes from, but it's manifest.
Oh my goodness. This is so funny, and it's masterful, honestly, what Michael Knowles just did. This kid Jack, he gets caught in this blatant lie that he can't get out of, and so instead of actually contending with the lie, he runs away on this long tangent, and Michael Knowles watched that, and he just let him punch himself out until he was done, thinking that he had gotten away from it. And then Michael just, well, hold on a second, let's bring you back to that lie, and immediately Jack's face. This is so good.
Either increase federal spending in that bill on law enforcement or he didn't. And it does appear from Michael and from a Democratic congressman that you're just wrong. So do you want to take an opportunity to maybe walk that back?
Oh, can't do that. Can't do that, man. He's too big. He's got like 1 to 1.5 million followers on YouTube. And these guys, they want him to stand his ground. And if he actually backtracks on this, he will start losing fan base. So it puts him in a position where he literally has to stick with the lie, no matter how bad it was, or else that thing just gets clipped into oblivion.
I do not know.
Of that was ice.
Well, you'd rather double down on a falsehood.
I'd say I think that I'm willing to double down on the fact that Donald Trump has made it difficult for police officers across this country to do their jobs, and he doesn't actually care about them.
Right, and would you be prepared to stake your entire professional reputation on the fact that he slashed federal spending on law enforcement in the budget?
Would I be willing to stake my entire reputation on the fact that Donald Trump has made it more difficult for law enforcement to do their job?
You made a very sweeping statement. This is the problem, you see. It's very easy to say Donald Trump has slashed federal spending on law enforcement. But if it turns out, as is the case, that it was the opposite and he's increased spending in his big, beautiful bill on federal spending on law enforcement, you should just have the good grace to go, I was wrong.
But I think the point is clear here, and it's one that we need to argue, which is whether or not Donald Trump has done anything to actually aid law enforcement, or if he's done anything to tackle crime.
If he increased spending, you would say that that is a good thing for the law enforcement, right?
I would say that Donald Trump's plans aren't coherent and don't make some cogent argument. Michael certainly doesn't make some cogent argument of how Donald Trump, who has let crime run free with his policies and within his administration, actually cares about responding to crime, when those who have had the most success aren't the governors of red states, but are the mayors of blue cities that Michael wants to claim are crime infested and being run into the ground. We have seen in DC, we have seen in Chicago, we have seen in Baltimore drops of historic lows in crime, like lower than we've seen in decades now. And I don't know why you won't acknowledge that, or maybe learn from some of those Democratic mayors.
Bro, you can just admit you made a false claim on air. It's okay. People make false claims. We could just move on. But you're doubling down on a easily disproven
when
claim
even
that
the
you made.
Democratic
Michael,
congressman says you're wrong.
Maybe that's what you've
You're
made your
wrong.
living doing, doubling down
Let me
on false
speak for
claims.
myself.
We've done some research while we were listening to that. The total net increase in law enforcement
brought up
spending
facts.
in the big beautiful bill is an estimated $170 billion across the full life cycle of the bill. This does include large allocations for ICE and the border wall, but also $3 billion for the Bureau of Prisons and almost $1 billion for federal law enforcement training centers. The bill was applauded by, among others, the National Fraternal Order of Police. So that does seem to be pretty unequivocal.
But at the same time, I must also point out that so far the DOJ this year has taken away about cut $500 million in grants. The DOJ has. We've also seen about $1 billion in grants that were to be distributed before Donald Trump's administration came in. The DOJ gutting those grant programs that support local police and violent crime reduction. So there's going to be another $1 billion next year. I think those numbers are important to point out. I don't know why the DOJ is reducing support for police. Cutting these grants doesn't really make a lot of sense for Donald Trump's argument.
Explain it to you
but I think
like.
that needs to be. I think
Well, I'll
that
tell you
needs
what,
to be
look,
put
I
forth.
don't
'Cause
really
we were
want to go
told-
back
I was
over-
told by Michael that there was no cuts at all. There
Okay,
were
no, I
none.
don't want to go back over it.
There
other
was
than-
not. As Piers just read, and as the speaker just pointed out, the numbers went up, not down, like you wrongly claimed.
Yeah, that does seem to be the indisputable takeaway.
So Jack's just proven himself to be a bad actor. He's ascribing false motives, he's dodging questions, he's abstracting reality from what actually happened on the ground in Portland. He's just trying to change people's perception on the facts, and Michael straight crushed it. It was like watching someone throw rocks at a tank. Thanks for watching.